talk a lot about financial literacy. We talk about financial literacy for kids. We talk about financial literacy for adults. But what about that group that's kind of in between? So post-secondary students, they may have flown the nest. They're pre that first big job for that career move, but there's a lot of things for them to learn and understand before becoming full-fledged out there in the world adults. We're going to talk about the specific challenges they face and the things that they need to learn in this regard. And our guest today is Benjamin Croitoru. He is associate finance professor and resident personal finance expert at McGill University's Desautels Faculty of Management. He is also the dean of McGill's free to the public personal finance essentials course, which you've heard us talk about on this show. Money Sense talking about it. Like, it's a great resource. And Benjamin is in Montreal today. Hello there.
Hi, very happy to be with you.
Thank you for joining us. You work in an academic institution. This demographic is pretty familiar for you as you walk the halls at work. What are some things that are different for post-secondary students when it comes to financial literacy? What are some things that they need to be focused on?
Well, I think they're at a point where very soon they're going to start making money. So I think it's the best time to try picking up the right habit and try arming themselves with the knowledge that they may not have learned, for example, in high school. Or actually in university, unfortunately, the percentage of students who have taken some sort of finance course is actually not very high. So I think it's the time to learn because, well, sometimes actually they already have to deal with credit cards, with debt. They're going to start making money fairly soon if they haven't started already. And well, they're lucky in the sense that, as you may know, thanks to the beauty of compound interest, compound returns, they have a very long-term horizon. And because of this, whatever good habits they can pick up now are going to make a huge difference in the long term.
There are a number of challenges that they face moving from their disgusting student housing. And I hope it's disgusting. Mine was disgusting, so I hope it's disgusting. But they will move into a world in which housing affordability is a huge issue for them. And then for many graduates, they are carrying an enormous burden in terms of student debt. How do you bring in those two realities into talking about money in a way that has them still be willing to crawl out of bed and face the day the next morning?
Well, what I really love to do is be able to give them a sense of power. Because I think, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Honestly, when you listen to the news, one thing that you hear about a lot is the fact that young people are possibly never going to be able to afford buying their own home. And that may or may not be true. But what I like telling people is that they really have the power of making a difference, especially when you're young. Relatively small changes that you can make can really have a big impact in the long term. And going back to the specific issue of housing, which I think is very important, I also tell people, so we don't have the time to get into the details, but it's okay to rent. It's absolutely, at least I don't want people to be panicked about this. It's absolutely okay to have a financially healthy life without buying your home.
But one of the things that is a concern for me with some of our new graduates, those who are lucky enough to graduate without a ton of student debt, those who are lucky enough to have a reasonable cost of living in terms of keeping a roof over their head, is the temptation of lifestyle inflation. So for the first time, they might have an actual job with a salary that pays a little bit more than they earned at their, retail job when they were almost forced to eat ramen noodles at every meal. How do you counsel them to find the balance between, you're a grown-up, you've got a paycheck now, and don't get ahead of yourself here because you want to ensure that you save for the things that are most important to you?
Well, I'd like to demonstrate to them, again, the importance of small changes, even if they can save. Well, the example I like to take, and I don't want to single out a particular chain of stores, but I'll still say Starbucks. I think you have a lot of people who maybe spend $10 or more at Starbucks, by the way, on things that might not be very healthy. And then, well, if you actually do the math, if you start saving just that amount every day or every business day over many years, the impact on your long-term financial security can be staggering. And of course, when I say long-term financial security, people might think retirement. And the problem is that when you're a 20-year-old, when you're just starting, probably retirement sounds a million years from now. That's probably not very motivating. But still, that also means it's not just retirement. It means the power of not feeling overwhelmed by their finances, and the power of well, maybe being able to take a year off, maybe being able to take a few fabulous trips.
These students are graduating into a paradox. One truth is it's never been more difficult to save. There are a gazillion things to buy. There's temptation everywhere. Life is very expensive. And it's never been easier to save because of technology. How would you connect with the young person's affinity for their phone, for everything that happens on their phone, and to use that technology in a way that is going to serve them over the course of time?
Well, yeah, the great thing about new technologies, of course, they are dangerous, but the great thing is that it's much easier than it used to be to control your own investing. I mean, you don't have to go to the local bank and talk to someone who might not really have your best interest at heart, because they're basically salespeople, and there's nothing really wrong with that. It's their job. But definitely the fact that you can do things yourself much more easily than in the past means that if you just have a little bit of knowledge, I think it's much easier than before to do quite well. And how do you do quite well in investing? I think the focus should be on avoiding the classic mistakes that average individual investors tend to repeat over and over.
For example?
For example, I would say possibly the most devastating mistake is the tendency that people have, to get in and out of the stock market based on the dominant sentiment, the dominant mood of the market. And the problem if you do that is that, well, if you do that, you're going to sell when everybody is panicked or depressed about the stock market. But when does that happen? Typically after the market has been going down for a while. And then this kind of people, they're going to get back into the market when the market feels safe again. But the problem is that if you do that, you're going to buy after it's been going up for a while, because that's when people feel good about the market. And of course, if you behave that way, you're going to be selling when after the market has gone down, when the price is low. You're going to be buying after it's been going up when the price is high. And of course, it's devastating for your long-term performance.
I'm glad you referenced behavior, because if you take 100 units of financial literacy, I think what is even more than all of that knowledge is 10 units of behavior that is going to deliver on goals over time. I'm going to tell you what my number one behavioral rule is for post-secondary students and graduates. And you tell me, I mean, I hope you like mine, but you may have a different one or a similar one. I don't know. And that is, you never, ever carry a balance on a credit card. You do whatever you can to pay that off in full every single month. I hope that fits with your values and your approach. What would be your number one behavior that you would beat the drum of no matter what?
But it's funny what you said, sorry, about credit cards, is that sometimes I tell my students, do you know what the number one top investment is? And then I tell them, but unfortunately, it does not apply to everybody. But then they never find my answer, and my answer is paying back your credit card balance, because there's no way you can get a 20% safe return except by paying your credit card balance in full. Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. I like that, because I teach investments to undergraduate students at McGill. And sometimes I think people have a tendency to separate investing and borrowing, but that doesn't make sense, right? You have to look as much as possible at your financial situation in a holistic way. And you want to definitely eliminate eliminate high interest debt as fast as you can, because that's going to be a drag on your finances that's going to be impossible to beat, basically.
How do you handle the list of yeah buts that some post-secondary school students or new grads would have about their inability to, fund the lifestyle they want, find a portable housing, like all those things? Is there a catch-all answer to all of those? I'm going to call them excuses, with air quotes here, because I don't want to offend anybody, but how do you handle those?
I don't think I've had found the miracle solution, against overspending. One thing is that a lot of people say, often you hear the advice that you need to have a budget. The way I think about it, I think about it the other way around. For a while, I tell people you should record all your expenses and then try to go over them with a clear head, a clear mind, in a quiet place, and try to figure out, okay, what do I really need? What really makes me happy? What doesn't? Try to see what you could cut after the fact. In my opinion, it's more realistic than having a budget, which is so hard to respect.
Yeah. And can be really theoretical when temptation shows up in front of you. Benjamin, thank you for your time today.
It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for making it work. Benjamin Croitoru is Associate Finance Professor at McGill University's Desautels Faculty of Management. He was here to talk about financial literacy and also financial behavior for post-secondary students and those beginning that first chapter after school.